Alright, so this next video is actually on proportions. Now, from the last video, it might seem like this lesson is a bit out of place, because in the last video we had a formula sheet and we were talking about units. But there's one very important math skill that we'll need to master before we actually get to unit conversions, and that is working with proportions. So the first question you might be asking is, okay, so what's a proportion? Well, there's a lot of different examples that we can think of. In baking, if we are going to be doubling a recipe, what we're essentially doing is we're just changing the proportion. And this could be applied to cell phones. If it takes me 1 minute to send 3 text messages, how many minutes does it take me to send 12 text messages? So if you were to think about that for a minute, maybe you would come up with a right answer of 4 minutes. But there's going to be an easier way to do this. And today we're going to be working through fractions as proportions. Okay? So on the next few slides, what you're going to see is a fraction where there's a number up here and down there, and a number up here and a number down there. And of course an equal sign right in between. Now, in order to solve these the easiest way possible, I'm going to teach you a strategy that's called cross multiply and divide. So the very first thing that I want you to realize is that I have 2 fractions here with an equal sign in the middle, but I don't have 4 numbers. I actually have a question mark, because this is what it's going to be, or what we're going to need to find to solve a proportion. So we are going to have to figure out what number goes here. So what we do first is we are going to cross multiply. So what I want you to do is write this question on your note page. So go ahead and pause the video and write this down. Okay, so now what I want you to do is draw a circle, or maybe not draw a circle, but just draw a line around the 2 numbers that are diagonals from each other. So in this case, it's the 6 and the 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply these 2 numbers. So 6 times 5 is 30. And if it helps you, you can just write a 30 at the side of your paper. Okay? Now that's what we do for cross multiplying. We're multiplying the numbers that are across from each other, or diagonal. And then the last step is to divide. So we're going to take that 30 that we found out, and we're going to divide it by the last number, which is 10. So 30 divided by 10 is 3. So our question mark is equal to 3. Okay? So that makes sense because if we look at this, 5 goes into 10 2 times, just like 3 goes into 6 2 times. But let's try another one here. So for this question, same thing, except the only difference is we have a letter B here. So instead of trying to find out what the question mark is, we're going to find out what the letter B is. So if it helps you, you might even want to put a little question mark by the B, because that'll tell you what we're trying to figure out. So what I want you to do is cross multiply and divide. So I want you to figure out which two numbers you're going to have to cross multiply. So go ahead and pause this video, write down the question, and then circle the two numbers that are diagonal from each other. So the two numbers that are diagonal from each other are the 7 and the 9. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply 7 times 9, and that's 63. And then I'm going to divide it by the last number that I have. So divide it by 21. And my answer happens to be 3 again. So that means that my B is equal to 3. Let's try another one. So for this one, you'll notice that we're using the letter D instead of the letter B, and we're going to approach it the very same way. So what I want you to do is try to do this question on your own. So you're going to figure out which two numbers you're going to cross multiply, and then you're going to divide by the last number. So go ahead and pause your video and do that now. Okay, so the two numbers that are across from each other in this one are 5 and 14. So I want you to get your calculator out and go 5 times 14 is 70. And then we're going to divide by the last number. Now it looks like my answer here is 17.5, so there is a decimal, but that's okay. So D is equal to 17.5. Let's try one more. So in this one, we're using the letter M, and again, the letter doesn't actually matter. It could be M, it could be A, or T, or Z, or X, and our final answer is always going to be whatever that letter is equals whatever our number is. Okay, so in this one, I want you to pause the video and try to figure this one out for yourself. Okay, so in this one, the two numbers that are diagonal from each other are the 8 and the 9. So when we multiply those two, 8 times 9 is 72. And then we're going to divide by the last number, which is 3. And so our answer is 24. So M equals 24. So if these questions went too fast for you, what I would encourage you to do is go back in the video to the previous slides and just go over them again. But just realize that we always do the same process. So the two numbers that are diagonal from each other, we multiply them, and then we always divide by the last number. So your homework is to go onto my RCOA and complete the Chapter 2.2 homework assignment, where there's going to be 10 questions just like this. Now, a piece of special information for you. 3 questions on the chapter quiz will be very similar to these homework questions, so make sure that you do each of them.